Lincoln, Nebraska, the capital of the state, where the sea of red rises every fall, where many cultures combine in the hopes of living the good life. In 2023, Lincoln is estimated to have 297,218 residents. The ever-expanding capital landscape covers almost 100 square miles. It is the second most populous city in Nebraska and the 68th largest in the United States. Home to the University of Nebraska-Lincoln and many other colleges, Lincoln has grown quite a bit over the last decade. Lincoln has also changed extensively in that same time. It used to give its residents a little bit of everything, small enough to have a small-town feel, but also large enough to feel like you're living in a thriving metropolis. What once was your stereotypical college town has turned into something quite different, where you could once leave your doors unlocked and your garages open. Now many homes have elaborate security systems, where you once could say, "That'll never happen here, not in Lincoln." Those days have seemingly come to an end, for now. Since May of 2019, Leirion Gaylor Baird has been the mayor of Lincoln, Nebraska. She is up for re-election this election cycle, but other than a few years prior to this election win, Leirion Gaylor Baird was otherwise a complete unknown in the state of Nebraska. She was not a Nebraska All-State athlete. She was never on a Nebraska high school debate team. She has no Nebraska roots, and before meeting her husband in college, she likely wouldn't be able to point to Nebraska on a map. She doesn't understand what it's like to be a Midwesterner, yet someone or something moved the pieces so she could govern over Nebraskans. Who really is Leirion? Where did she grow up? What background prepared her for public service in Lincoln, Nebraska? Outside of ribbon cuttings, photo ops here and there, a BLM rally on the courthouse stairs after curfew, and a daily COVID-19 health briefing, no one really seems to know how Mrs. Baird made it to Nebraska and how or why she rose in the ranks so quickly. An expedited level of influence to Lincoln, Nebraska, especially for someone who didn't spend a single formative year of her life here. Before this series is over, you will know who the real Leirion Gaylor Baird is and why she should no longer hold power over Nebraskans, over you. Leirion Gaylor Baird was born and raised in Portland, Oregon. Her parents were public school teachers. She completed a Bachelor of Arts in History from Yale University's sister school, Yale College, in 1993. This is where she met her Nebraska-born husband. She then traveled and studied in the United Kingdom, earning a Master's of Science in Comparative Social Policy from the University of Oxford in 1997. Shortly after she graduated, Baird returned to the West Coast and settled in San Francisco, California. She began her professional career as a management consultant, working also as a city budget and policy analyst. She was the director of an after-school and summer program in San Francisco. Nonprofits and budget managing was the extent of any work experience Leirion carried with her as she and her family moved to Nebraska to begin her planned political career.
Hello and welcome to City Focus. I'm Diane Gonzalez. The City of Lincoln has 3 new City Council members, and 5 City TV will be sitting down with each of them to talk about their goals for the community. Today's guest is Leirion Gaylor Baird, and Leirion, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Congratulations on the election. And what do you hope to accomplish as a City Council member?
Well, I'm really excited about Lincoln's future, and I'm excited about the trajectory of growth and the success that we've seen in the last few years. I want to try and keep us on that successful trajectory. I'm interested in working with the business community to make sure that we are growing and that we're attracting new businesses, that we're expanding existing businesses, and that we're protecting the quality of life that we enjoy here. The reason that Lincoln is so attractive to families and to businesses. So making sure that we have excellent pools, parks, libraries, trails is important to me.
Is there any one issue that you would like to focus on?
Well, early on, I'm interested in focusing on the budget. We're in the biennial budget cycle, but I would like to spend some time getting much more familiar with the budget so that we are making sure that we're protecting our resources and thinking about creative ways to expand our resources and creating efficiencies so that we can protect the services that I just mentioned and continue to be on provide the quality of life that people enjoy and expect in Lincoln.
All right, Leirion, tell us about your family and about the hobbies and the things you like to do.
I have 3 young children. I have a daughter, Ava, who's 10, and a son named Turner, who's about to turn 9, and a 4-year-old named Cleo. And we enjoy Lincoln. We love the libraries and the trails, and I'm actually a runner. I like to run in Wilderness Park and the Rock Island Trail in particular. I go about 4 mornings a week. And I've enjoyed doing the Lincoln Half Marathon the last few years.
And your husband, you mentioned, is a Lincoln native?
Yes, he was born about 7 blocks from where we live. He actually grew up in Superior, Nebraska, but his parents, my in-laws, Sam and Joyce Baird, and moved back to Lincoln just a few years before we did, and we call Lincoln home.
All right, Leirion, thank you very much for being with us. Good luck on the City Council, and we'll have you on the program again in the future.
Great, thank you, Diane.
Up until 2002, Baird had spent the majority of her life on both the East and West Coast, and across the pond in a foreign country. She was immediately groomed for political office by someone or some entity. It was shortly thereafter in 2007 when she was appointed to head out Lincoln-Lancaster County Planning Commission. The Planning Commission's purpose is said to help work with the city budget. In 2013, she was elected to City Council and then re-elected in 2017. During her time on City Council, Leirion said her main focuses were protecting the quality of life of Lincoln citizens and familiarizing herself with the city budget even more, and make sure that tax dollars are being spent appropriately. However, during her time as a City Council member, Leirion voted to increase taxes, passed close to 100 different fees for citizens to pay on one of her last budget approvals as City Council member, cut funds for desperately needed road repairs, led a successful effort to increase our sales tax, supported a lawsuit forcing the city to raise taxes, and voted to give $1 million in tax dollars to a private, unaccountable foundation rather than to supplement public employee pensions. So where did all the additional tax money go? Did it fix the potholes on the city streets? Did it help citizens grow their small businesses? No one seems to know where all the extra taxes and fees went. What did she mean when she said she would work to make sure the tax dollars are spent appropriately? Did that mean raising them? It appears as if all Leirion really did was raise Lincoln citizens' taxes and gorge them constantly with menial fees every chance she got. Soon after her expensive and financially exhausting tenure on the council, she turned her sights towards an even more powerful position in the city, the mayor's office. She began laying the groundwork for her campaign towards the end of her second term as city council member. This was subsequently when everything in Lincoln began taking a massive downturn.
Forced to leave his position as mayor due to a newly approved term limit amendment which only allows a mayor to serve 3 consecutive terms. Gaylor Baird has served on the Lincoln City Council for the last 5 years.
As mayor, I will focus on ensuring public safety, improvements to our streets, access to affordable housing, and the maintenance of our parks and trails.
For Gaylor Baird, public service was stressed at an early age.
My mom and dad were public school teachers, and they taught me, first and foremost, to always do my homework. And they, more importantly, taught me that a career can be dedicated to improving the lives of others.
In November of 2018, Leirion announced her candidacy for mayor of Lincoln. Due to municipal election law, Baird ran as a nonpartisan under the platform of community land trusts for housing projects, environmental preservation, and additional funding for roads, even though she spent 8 years on city council cutting that part of the city's budget. Now, even though there were several other Democrat candidates that were better equipped for the position and had earned the trust of Lincolnites across the city, Democrat leadership backed Baird with full support.
Leirion has proven herself time and again. She has proven she wants what is best for Lincoln. She does her homework, and she works hard to find solutions to our biggest challenges.
So what made Democrat leadership get behind Leirion Gaylor Baird so enthusiastically? A coastal elite with a pseudo-Ivy League education and upbringing rises the political chain in less than 10 years of residing in the state. Seems out of the ordinary, even for Washington, D.C. standards. Since holding political office in Nebraska, all she had accomplished was stripping necessary city funds for roads and police and raising taxes on its citizens. Well, regardless, Lincoln continued to vote blue in the mayor's race and elected Leirion Gaylor Baird as the city's 52nd mayor, defeating her Republican opponent, Cindy Lamb, by 5,698 votes.
This wasn't a future that I had envisioned for myself, but you know, that's what good leaders do. They bring other people along, they get others involved, and you never know what might happen if you get appointed to a board or commission. Maybe one day you'll be mayor too.
It didn't take long after being sworn in for Baird to begin implementing the then conspiratorial Agenda 2030 in the city of Lincoln. Less money for first responders and the police department, and more money for solar panels from China. From taking CCP-sponsored trips to China and frequently hosting pro-China events in the city, it was clear from the very beginning of her reign who was funding and pushing Baird to political power. None of the policies that have been implemented since she took office have benefited the citizens of Lincoln. They have only benefited her and her puppet masters in China. All of this came to head in the spring of 2020 when Agenda 2030 hit hyperspeed proportions. Lockdowns came in full force, which caused tension across the city to rise, and emotions of everyone in Lincoln to boil over. Violence, property damage, and the riots followed shortly after. Leirion stood idle and allowed Lincoln, the city she was elected to lead, to burn.
Investigating 9 different vandalisms with the most extensive damage to a business at 25th and O Street. During the early morning hours, we have had 8 officers that were injured as they attempted to prevent further harm to other people and to prevent destruction to businesses in the area. In addition, we had 3 of our police cruisers that were damaged. It's not enough for you to say, I won't be part of that violence, I won't be part of that destruction. But I'm gonna let my friends, my children, know that my expectation is this does not happen in the city of Lincoln.
Now, before the spring and summer of 2020, Mayor Leirion Gaylor Baird systematically had her hands in the destruction of the capital city of Nebraska, with all the Lincoln Last policies being implemented on a month-to-month basis. It was obvious the goal she had in the back of her mind. Democrats know the majority of Nebraskans would never elect a Democrat in the governor's office, so the next best thing to help usher in the 2030 globalist agenda would be to make the capital of the state as unlivable as humanly possible. So upon the arrival of the COVID-19 virus from Wuhan, China, Leirion blatantly went against the orders of Governor Ricketts, as she legally can due to those charters mentioned earlier, and locked down the citizens of Lincoln for months. It should be noted, as this series was produced, the city of Lincoln is still under the state of emergency Baird declared back in the spring of 2020. 3 years later, she still operates under the emergency power she granted herself, even though the world has moved on past the pandemic. Baird insists on holding on to the overreaching powers granted to her, just in case. So shortly after the failed 15 days to slow the spread theory, Leirion kept schools closed, enacted citywide curfews, and closed down businesses except for all the big box corporate stores. Then, as every city in America burned to the ground during the BLM riots, Lincoln's mayor did her part as she stood with BLM activists, gave stand-down orders to Lincoln police, and allowed for rioters to rack up nearly $10 million in property damage. She, along with the protesters, broke her own 8 p.m. curfew on consecutive nights during the summer. And she never once condemned the violence and destruction that was brought on the once safe and prosperous community of Lincoln, Nebraska.
And they've mentioned staying together. They talked about saying their name and being together one.
We just want justice, literally. Our children are going to be here soon. Our children's children are going to be here soon. We just want justice, literally. You see this? This is not thugs. This is not what the media is claiming us to be. We're here peacefully.
We are all angry at the continued violence, racism, and unequal treatment inflicted on our African Americans and people of color across our nation. People should be outraged about what happened in Minnesota and in so many other places across the United States. It is a shameful pattern, and it must end. Across our nation and here in Lincoln, people are calling for change, for a better world free from the racist bigotry that still plagues our communities. Protesters in Lincoln have largely been peaceful and respectful, and we fully support their calls for justice. To all those who are speaking out in these troubled times, we are here with you. We stand with you in calling for justice.
And as the days of unrest piled up, it began spilling into other parts of the city, most notably the south side of Lincoln. Dozens of enraged protesters marched down neighborhood streets while families ate dinner together and young children slept. They screamed through bullhorns and demanded reparations, frightening families of all backgrounds and causing a citywide disturbance. With the inability to do his job to the best of his ability, the then Lincoln Police Chief Jeff Bleiemeister resigned from his post.
This was the worst news I had received about city government since I left city government. Jeff was a great young police chief, very sensitive to all elements of the community, very sensitive to community policing, and generally you really couldn't hope for more from a police chief. He did a great job for us.
When we set out in this process, we were looking for the best person to lead the department, and we found the best person to lead the department. And she happens to be a woman.
Prompting Leirion to import another San Francisco resident to take over the LPD and impose failed San Francisco policies to the people of Nebraska. So where was Leirion during all the mandates? Her and her family, under the guise of a trust, bought $1 million home outside of Lincoln in the small town of Ashland, calling it a vacation home. The mayor and her family spent more time there than their listed residents in Lincoln. Did Ashland hold on to all the draconian COVID measures? Highly unlikely. We must ask the question why Leirion thought it was okay for Lincoln residents to mask their children, keep them from sporting events, close small businesses, and isolate them from society when she herself had no plans of complying and subjecting her kids to the same rules.
You were a basketball family. She decided not to go out for basketball, instead choosing to do tennis. And I know there's a bit of a controversy now surrounding that decision as far as her playing in a current tennis tournament.
In our case, that decision was made back in August, back before the DHMs that currently governs youth sports were implemented or even written. And that was a decision our family made to try to protect each other and protect our family and friends. We made the switch to tennis because it was considered a non-contact sport, that the state guidelines for reopening youth sports back in June listed it as one that was not covered by DHMs, and it seemed like a safer alternative.
So many parents are feeling that loss of their child participating in a sport, and then they see you as the mayor having your daughter participating in tennis. Do you think it sets a good example to have your daughter participate in a sport when other kids can't play right now?
Well, it made perfect sense to us, and we had that information. Could not have been known to others. And while others are feeling a sense of loss, something we've been enduring as a community for 9+ months, recognizing that my family has a different standard because of my public role.
All of these bad decisions as mayor led to an official recall effort in October of 2020. And as the effort to recall Leirion as mayor fell short in the winter months, it put Leirion on notice that her failed policies had made concerned citizens of Lincoln aware of her agenda. Her weak and feckless leadership has made the once safe Lincoln, Nebraska, that almost never dealt with murder and violent crime, a much more dangerous place to live.
Downtown Lincoln is not safe at any time, I believe.
Both for citizens and for the businesses that closed their doors since 2020. With record businesses picking up and closing shop monthly, and violent crime on the rise and spiking much like every major city in America has since 2020. Voters in Lincoln will soon have an opportunity to deliver justified retribution to Mayor Leirion Gaylor Baird in April and May, and redirect the capital of Nebraska from heading in the current bad direction it's on.